Hey, welcome to Pro Football Now. One team is undefeated. 4 teams have yet to win a game. What does it all mean? Well, that's why we have these reporters from the MMQB here, Albert Breer, Kaylin Kaler. We're going to empty the notebook as we do every week here on PFN. And Kaylin, we're going to start with you. You were just in Minnesota, so let's talk about the NFC North and specifically the Vikings. What did you see when you were there? Obviously, some devastating news with Dalvin Cook going down for the year.
Yeah, a losing locker room is always dead silent, but this one felt a little more quiet and sad and depressed. And obviously, as you talk to the players in the locker room, it was a next man up mentality. Everybody knew at that point, even though they hadn't reported at that point in time that he had a torn ACL and was going to be lost for the remainder of the season. You could tell that everyone knew. And when we went into the locker room, Dalvin actually came by his locker, grabbed his stuff. You know, there were people around it to make sure reporters didn't go up to him and ask him questions, but he hobbled off, walked off with crutches and a big knee brace on his left knee. So you knew at that point what the verdict was. And in his post-game press conference, Mike Zimmer, a quote that I really liked that he said, he was like, you know, if this is an ACL, it's not the first great running back that we've had here to come back from an ACL injury. And obviously he's referencing Adrian Peterson, who was injured at the end of the 2011 season and came back for an MVP season the very next year. So Dalvin might be able to find some inspiration in another Minnesota runner who was in the same situation as him.
In the short term, though, I mean, like, certainly this is something that, with their quarterback situation being what it is, this exacerbates the problem because they were at least able to support Case Keenum to a certain degree through the running game. Now you take Dalvin Cook out of the mix, that changes the dynamic for them offensively. And what's really interesting about where they're going to be going forward now, and I've talked to Mike Zimmer about this, is how their quarterback situation is complicated with every week that Sam Bradford misses. Because every week Sam Bradford misses, we're moving a week closer to Teddy Bridgewater potentially coming back. And I've talked to Mike Zimmer about this a couple times, and what he's maintained is that if Sam Bradford is playing well, there's no decision to make. Well, right now, Sam Bradford's not playing at all. And this is a team that really believed it was a playoff caliber team coming in. It's a playoff caliber defense. They invested to fix the offensive line in signing Riley Reif and Mike Remmers. And so they've got some pieces there that would make them think we're in position to compete for the playoffs. And now they may have a quarterback decision to make in November.
We haven't seen or heard from Teddy Bridgewater in months. Is it possible that he could be coming back in the next few weeks?
I don't know that it's necessarily the best thing for his career to come back. Like, I think that the people around him, and I've talked to some people who've coached him the last few weeks, who say the best thing for him and his career may be to sit. The problem is there's money at stake here. If he actually winds up sitting out, then there's the possibility his contract could toll. If his contract tolls, then that means it's going to be another year till he gets to free agency. And so there are some business kind of elements at work here, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And again, you know, if he comes back, this is a player they really liked. And before he got hurt in August of 2016, they really believed that he was set to turn a corner. He was doing a better job pushing the ball downfield. They felt like they were going to be able to get more out of Thielen and Diggs as a result. Now, obviously, he goes down. They trade for Bradford. Everything changes. But this is a guy that they really liked before he got hurt. And if he shows some semblance of being that player again, when he is able physically to get back out there, maybe in November, and maybe Bradford's a little slow coming back off that injury, it'd be interesting to see if there's a decision to make, because both those guys are set to be free agents after this year.
Yeah, the plot thickens when you have free agency coming and looming.
They've invested in both of them. Teddy Bridgewater was a first-round pick, and Sam was a guy they gave up a first-round pick for.
Either way, they're going to be tied to one of those quarterbacks. So they just have to pick which one, and hopefully they picked right if you're a Vikings fan. Let's continue in the NFC North, though, and continue with quarterbacks. Mitchell Trubisky is going to get his first start. He'll make his debut on Monday night. Albert, what are you hearing around the Bears?
Let's make no mistake about this. This starts with Mike Glennon opening the door. He's been awful the first month of the season, and so a huge part of this is that Mike Glennon has not played to expectations. He had every opportunity to stop this from happening. That door's open because he didn't play well. But, I mean, to Trubisky's credit, he kicked it open, too. I mean, the way that, if you talk to the coaches there, the way he's been able to kind of move from one checkpoint to the next. I mean, this is a guy who in the spring needed to be taught how to take a snap from under center and how to spit out a play call in the huddle. Those are things he never did in high school that he didn't do at the University of North Carolina. So he's gone from that to being a guy who looked really good in the preseason and was able to get out there and function in game action. I know that at the beginning of the year, they were no longer worried about, is his development going to be screwed up if we throw him out there? I think earlier, if you go back to June or July, they would have told you, we're going to probably stick with Glennon at least through the first half of the season because we don't want to risk messing up all the work we've done with Trubisky and his development. Over the course of August, seeing him in preseason games, it gave them the confidence to say to themselves, okay, if Glennon stubs his toe here, that leash isn't as long anymore because we feel like we've got a rookie who's ready to go.
Well, I think they also probably feel like they need someone athletic back there because the offensive line is not miraculously going to get better. Mike Glennon is kind of running for his life, and he's not very fast.
I always wonder with this timing, like, was this date kind of circled on Chicago's calendar just because they played on a Thursday night and now they have a Monday night game? That is like the longest break you're going to get for Trubisky to get ready and game prep for his first start. So I don't know.
That's definitely a factor, yeah. I mean, like the fact that you can give him that, and again, you have a couple of days to discuss it, and now you like have an extra practice day, like an actual extra practice day, which is unusual during the season, certainly helps.
Yeah, they will obviously welcome in the Minnesota Vikings to Soldier Field on Monday, and that ferocious defense that the Vikings do have. All right, let's talk about the AFC. Biggest story in the league, I think, heading into Week 5 without a doubt, is Deshaun Watson coming off the 5-touchdown performance. Albert, you literally just got off the phone with Bill O'Brien. Is he now anointing Deshaun Watson as his Super Bowl winning quarterback?
No,
I don't think so.
He was jamming on the brakes as far as that goes. They've been impressed though. I mean, I think one of the things that when you talk to Bill about it, like that he impresses on you is that this is a really good kid. This is a kid who does everything that you ask him to do, and the things that he's doing behind the scenes start to show up. And like one of the things that he pointed out was we've worked a lot on back shoulder throws, and you see the throw he made to the tight end against New England, and the throw he made to Will Fuller against the Titans. That sort of work is showing up. He's got the trust of his teammates, and that's from the way he interacts with them. He makes sure, and one thing that he pointed out was like an option plays. When he's running a speed option in practice, one of the things he'll do at the end of an option play, he'll make sure to flip it to his teammate, even if he's got a clear look at the end zone, because he wants to make sure, I want to make sure my teammate knows he's involved. There are little things that Deshaun Watson's doing that show you why, and have shown the staff there why the people at Clemson spoke so highly of him. And we all made a big deal of Dabo saying, this is Michael Jordan. If you pass on Deshaun Watson, you're passing on Michael Jordan. Well, the truth is, you can see based on when you talk to people in the Texans organization, and you hear about the things he's done behind the scenes, and you see what kind of tone setter he's become for them as a rookie, you can certainly see why Dabo and the Clemson program regarded him that way.
Almost makes you wonder really why Tom Savage was ever starting. Right. But meanwhile, they've corrected things, and here we go with Deshaun Watson. Kaylin, thank you for being here, telling us all about the Minnesota Vikings. Appreciate that. Albert, you're going to stick around. You have more to tell us about. Of course, now let's kick it to our friends at Pro Football Focus. Take it away, Steve and Sam.
I'm Steve Palazzolo.
And I'm Sam Monson. We are Pro Football Focus, and this is Well Actually.
Sam, many people wrote off Los Angeles Rams quarterback Jared Goff after just 1 year last year, and he didn't look great, not going to lie. He was ugly at times. But well, actually, I'm here to tell you that you don't write a quarterback off after just 1 year.
If you look at his numbers this season, they've taken a huge jump up from last year. PFF overall rating up to 75.4. That's up 30 points from a season ago, to go along with a passer rating that's jumped through the roof to over 100 at 112. And if you just put on the tape, you see the same kind of thing. Jared Goff is making college Jared Goff throws, fitting the ball into tight windows, delivering the ball down the field in a way that just he wasn't doing a season ago as a rookie.
So if you look historically through PFF grades, there's not a lot of quarterbacks who have really bounced back from rough rookie seasons. We had Matthew Stafford back in 2009. He had a 41.5 overall grade. You have Derek Carr in 2014 as a rookie, 55.5 overall grade. And then last year, Goff was a 45.6. But we've seen Stafford and Carr both improve through the years. And I think Goff is on his way to making that same jump. And then if you look at the rookie class last year, Dak Prescott got all of the praise, and it was all well-deserved. But every time Dak was mentioned, people also cited a very good offensive line and a very good running game. You look at Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles. He got off to a great start, but once the offensive line started giving up pressure, he also took a step back, both in numbers and in PFF grades. So I think it just shows how important the supporting cast is to player development and not writing these guys off right away.
Yeah, it's a huge piece of this story to Jared Goff's improvement is the supporting cast around him is so much better than it was a season ago. Just going from Greg Robinson alone at left tackle to Andrew Whitworth is a colossal upgrade. Last season, Greg Robinson gave up 40 total pressures in just 14 games, while Whitworth had the league's best pass blocking efficiency score blocking in Cincinnati. He comes over this season, he's allowed 1 total hurry across 4 games. That offensive line was averaging a grade in the 60s last season, but Whitworth and John Sullivan, the 2 guys they've added in the offseason, are up at 76 average between the 2 of them. And that's just had this knock-on effect all across the board. Jared Goff's pressure percentage last year was at 44%, down to 36 this year. Todd Gurley, suddenly a completely revived offensive weapon because he's getting to the line of scrimmage and seeing recognizable holes that he can get through. So, and this isn't even mentioning the receiving weapons that have been added for him to play with as well.
So let's discuss those receiving weapons. Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods come in from the Buffalo Bills, both receivers averaging over 15 yards per catch. And then your boy Cooper Kupp, they draft him in the 3rd round, establishing himself as a very good possession receiver right now. And you have to give credit to the other missing piece. It's Sean McVay, head coach who comes over from the Washington Redskins, where I truly believe he helped make Kirk Cousins one of the best statistical quarterbacks in the NFL. Look back to just 2015. Cousins was number 5 in passer rating in the NFL, but only 14th in PFF grade, which is really giving proper context for all of those quarterbacks' throws.
Yeah, you can see the effect schematically that all these changes are having on this offense. Play action, way up from a year ago. He's up at 26% this year, over a quarter of his dropbacks using play action. A season ago, it was just 14.1, and the deep ball is there more often. This season, he's going deep over 20 yards in the air, 13.7% of the time. Last season, we couldn't even find him on the PFF sheet, and it's there more often this year. He's up as the number 2 quarterback in adjusted completion percentage on those deep shots. So this offense is scheming Jared Goff a whole raft of more easy attempts.
So Jared Goff making great strides here in year 2. Have to credit that supporting cast, the coaching staff, and it's really important that we remember, do not write quarterbacks off after just 1 year.
It's time for Scot's Spotlight. We welcome in former general manager for Washington and San Francisco, a senior executive with the Seahawks. One of the great scouting minds that we have in the pro game, Scot McCloughan, good enough to give us a few minutes. We can pick his brain. And, you know, Scott, let's start here, and that's in Oakland. But hang on a second. Amari Cooper was the 4th overall pick. When you were with Washington, you took Brandon Scherff 5th, the very next pick. And I'm just curious now, if you could have had Amari Cooper at that 4th spot, would you have taken him there?
Well, you know, the thing about Amari, I was really impressed with him. I really was. I thought, you know, and he's going to be a really good player. I know he's had some issues with drops. You didn't really see him in college. My first pick as a Washington Redskin, I wanted to take a big, powerful, smart, intelligent guy because I wanted to build on the fact that everything starts up front. And don't get me wrong, it's nice to have perimeter receivers, you know, but they touch the ball maybe 6, 8, 10 times a game. Where you take an offensive lineman that I really respected and had the mindset, the toughness, and the attitude I was looking for to build forward, he's involved in every snap. He has impact on every snap, where an outside receiver doesn't. And again, I'm not knocking on receivers because Amari was a really good football player coming out. And it surprises me where he's at now from the standpoint of drops because you didn't see that in college.
Yeah, he's got a catch rate of only 38%. Take us back to when you were scouting him, because I'm assuming you were picking right around where you did. What did you see then? You
know, I saw a really good football player. I really did. And I thought he'd come in right away and start, which he did, and have some production right away. I don't know what's going on, and sometimes it's mental, you know, but I get nervous about taking, you know, receivers or running backs that early because there's so many in the draft, 1 through 7 rounds, of course, in free agency, college free agency. You know, I'm going to take the guy that has the most impact early on the game, and that's the guy that's on the field every snap, and that's the guy that has an impact on every play. You know, O lineman, D lineman, that's what I look for. But Amari's going to come through this because he's way too talented and had way too much success in the SEC not to be a good player in the NFL.
All right, well, Scott, one guy who's absolutely shown that he has talent over the last 3 weeks is Deshaun Watson. It's a guy who had 35 starts at Clemson, Heisman runner-up, played in 2 national title games, won the national championship last year. So here's what I'm curious about. What have you seen over the course of the last 3 weeks that he didn't show in college?
Well, he showed it in college, and I really liked him coming out. Yeah, like I said, I studied a lot of quarterbacks last year. With the scans, just because of knowing with Kirk Cousins' situation, what's going to happen there. But my first and foremost thing I look for in quarterbacks is win-loss, and then touchdowns to picks. And then of course leadership comes in after that. But he had all that, and he was on a good team. Again, had a lot of wins, won a national championship. That's not easy to do. It's not at all, because the quarterback, a lot was on his plate. And everybody wanted to make him sound like, well, he's just more of a running quarterback than a throwing quarterback. And that's not true. And it's proven evident now how well he's playing, and you can see things don't faze him. He played in enough big games in college where it's not new for him to go out to an NFL stadium and see 70, 75,000 people, rooting against him. He's stepping up and making plays. When I watch him, especially this last week, he looks like a veteran. He's not a rookie. He looks like a veteran that's played 5-6 years and had a lot of success.
Well, there's obviously a learning curve for any quarterback. Have there been specific throws or specific plays that you've watched that have stood out?
What's impressive about him is, everybody thinks when he gets out of the pocket that he's going to run. And he made a play the other day that I believe was the third quarter. On the run, he's going pretty much full speed, and then he break stride and made the throw on the line for a touchdown. And that's kind of stuff you really can't teach, because a lot of guys will set their feet and they want to throw. But if you can throw on the move and have accuracy on the move, that's when you really start coming through.
So, Scott, take us behind the scenes. Is there a different type of calculus you do for a senior quarterback, someone who's been 4 years in college as opposed to a junior or even an underclassman?
Not really a calculus. Again, it's wins and losses. It's yours as a starter. It's so important to get to know from the coaches what kind of person he is, not just on the field, but in the locker room, in the weight room, in the training room. What kind of leadership skills he has, because the talent's evident, and there's a lot of quarterbacks each year that come out that have talent, and some don't pan out because they don't have the intangibles that, like, Watson's showing right now. I mean, that's very incredible. I think you're seeing some from Goff right now, which you didn't see last year, but it's a process. And for a rookie to step out there and do what he's doing I commend him big time.
So let's go from a quarterback who had several years of starts under his belt to a quarterback who only had 13 college starts, and that is Mitchell Trubisky, who's going to be taking snaps for the Bears now. He'll make his debut on Monday Night Football. Would you have gone to Trubisky this early if you were in the front office of the Bears?
Of course, it's a coach's decision, but there's communication every day between the GM, the directors, the coaches, coordinator, the whole package. It comes to a point, and the same thing happened to me with Alex Smith when I was in San Fran, his first year in 2005 when we took him. You don't want to rush him out there because if you're doing it, it means your team's not being successful. And is it the O-line? Is it the receivers? Is it defense, special teams, whatever? You have to be careful where you don't hurt his confidence. But also, there's a reason why they traded up to take him. And there's a reason why he had good preseason. So at some point, you got to find out if you can or can't do it, and that's what Houston did, with Watson. They put him out there, and here we go. And we've seen in the last couple of years, some quarterbacks have stepped out. And the thing about Trubisky, too, he's a mature kid. 1-year starter scares you to move up and draft him as early as he did. But also, if he has talent and he has the ability to do it, which he showed in preseason, why not put him out there? But you got to protect him.
Scott, you mentioned all the things that have to happen for a rookie quarterback to be successful. Is it all the things that could go wrong? So looking at the Bears situation right now, are enough things going right in Chicago for Trubisky to be successful and to not lose confidence?
Well, the thing about it is it's going to come down to play calling. And guys around him have to play well, too. The O-line has to protect him, and he has to be able to run the football. It's vital to be able to run the football because then you set up play action. It gives you a chance to do things. You can make the offense broader by doing that. But if you put them back there and doing 5- and 7-step drops and know that they're coming, because they're gonna try to trick them. These defense coordinators nowadays, it's all about deception. Walk a safety up, walk a safety back, walk a linebacker up, walk him back. He has to identify what defense they're in, and they're going to toy with them. And, that's why it's cool with Watson because he's had the ability to adjust and make plays. But the thing about Trubisky that's cool too is the fact that he has mobility. He can get out of harm's way and make plays.
Okay, so let's go from teams that have their quarterbacks of the future to one that's still looking for theirs. The Jets, over the course of the offseason, went through a purge. They got rid of a lot of their older players, Revis, Mangold, Harris, guys who were core players for them for a long, long time. They've gone very young, and the perception here in New York was that they were tanking for that number 1 overall pick, or at least a high pick, to get in position to draft a Darnold or an Allen or a Rosen. And yet here they are, Scott. They're 2-2. If you're the GM of that team, quietly, I'm going to say quietly, are you a little concerned about your chance of getting a top quarterback in next year's draft might be slipping away?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know GM well. I know Todd Bowles well. You live each week and you fight each week to win a game. The draft's going to take care of itself. And say first pick to the 5th pick to the 25th pick. Doesn't matter. You live for the moment. These players, they bust their tails every day. They're out there working as hard as they can. They listen to the coaches. And you get on Sunday, the adrenaline kicks in. You want to win games. That's plain and simple. And I've never heard one GM, one head coach, one owner, one president ever say, I'm going to tank the season to get the first pick, ever.
They might not be saying
doesn't
it,
happen
Scott,
in the
but they
NFL.
might want it. I mean, if we gave them sodium pentothal, it might be a little bit different. That's commonly known as truth serum. You mentioned that you know Todd Bowles very well, and I'm just curious, how do you judge a coach in a season like this, where, as Albert just articulated, just all of the players that they cut ties with?
Yeah, the thing is, it's easy to judge if you're in the building because what you want is consistency. 2-game losing streak, 2-game winning streak. Be the same person every day. From the outside looking in, I'm proud of him. He deserves it. He's a really, like I said, good person. He's a good coach. And he's had some struggles, which a lot of first-time coaches do. I know it's in second year, but it's tough. And it's the fact that the players are still believing. The players are going out there and like I said, playing hard. And win, loss, draw, doesn't matter. You just want to see passion on the field, and it starts with the head coach, but also goes down to the coordinators and the coordinators to the position coaches that have to say, listen, we're in this. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Let's go out there and see what happens. Compete. That's what you guys have done your entire life.
Scott's Spotlight with former GM Scot McCloughan. Really appreciate your insight, and thank you very much for all of that. Before we go, though, we have one more thing that we'd like to do with you. This is a segment we're calling What Did They Miss? And we're going to highlight someone who went a little bit lower in the draft than it would look like they should have. And today we want to talk about Stefon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings. Scotty was a 5th-round pick. Now he's one of the most dangerous receivers in the league. Go back to when he was coming out of Maryland. What were the conversations about Diggs, and why did he go so low?
The thing about it is it's unique because we brought him in for our local workout because he's a local guy in the D.C. area, so you could bring those guys in. And he stood out there big time, just from a talent standpoint, speed, quickness, and all that. He's not the biggest guy, which makes me nervous at times because, the receiving stuff and the amount of hits he's going to take and that. But there were some background things lingering that made us nervous. And, of course, I can't go into them. But it sounded like me meeting with the coaches, me meeting with him, and the scouts. The best thing was for him to maybe go somewhere else from the area just because of the background stuff. But he was a good college football player. He wasn't special, but he was good. In my personal opinion, I think he's a better NFL player than he was college player. But the talent was there. I saw it live in this workout, and of course we watched tape on him. But that stuff every year happens, and sometimes there's too much information that you overload yourself and thinking, okay, wow, we better be careful here, be careful there. And you lose track of the tape and the player himself, because all the social media and stuff you read and stuff you're told, by local, agents and that kind of things plays into it. But there's a reason why he went later, and he's proven that he shouldn't have, and I respect that a lot. He hasn't been anything negative for the NFL at all. He's been a positive sign, and every year this happens at all different positions. And power to him for stepping up and being the player he is.
Scot McCloughan, always appreciate it. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys, very much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Welcome to the Executive Suite. I'm Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive. We are at the quarter point of the NFL season, and let's talk about some players who are not living up to expectations for your fantasy football team. Let's start with Raider wide receiver Amari Cooper. When fantasy football analysts speak about Amari Cooper, they always speak about his talent. The problem is, talent does not show up in the box score. You don't get fantasy points for talent. So let's look at the receipts. So far this season, Cooper has 12 receptions for 110 yards on 31 targets. Cooper almost has just as many drops as he does receptions. 10-team leaguers can put Cooper on the bench until he proves he can catch the football. The drops with Cooper are mental. Raiders quarterbacks may begin to lose confidence in the talented Cooper. I would not be looking to buy low on Cooper. Another player who struggled out the gate is Cleveland Browns running back Isaiah Crowell. Crowell is falling victim to negative game flow. As long as the Browns continue to be terrible, Crowell will continue to be overlooked in the Cleveland offense. Crowell is running for less than 3 yards per carry. He has 0 touchdowns, and he's only caught 5 passes on the season. Crowell can go to the bench in 10 and 12-team leagues. Our symmetric rising star for Week 5 is Cardinals running back Andre Ellington. No one player can replace David Johnson, the kind of production he brings to the table. One of the areas Johnson thrived in was his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. In his last 2 games, Ellington has 14 receptions for 145 yards. With the Cardinals' O-line struggling, look for Carson Palmer to continue to check the ball down to Ellington, who is a must-add in PPR formats.
Thanks, Corey. This is last call. We're going to kick things off by talking about 2 quarterbacks. On Monday night, neither Kirk Cousins nor Alex Smith were a liability in the least, like so many have expected them to be over the years. Neither limited his team's ceiling, nor did either hold back any of the skill position players on hand. Instead, both starred, and by the end, it seemed like the last one with the ball would win. And that's basically the way it went. The 50-yard march Smith led to the game-winning field goal left just 4 seconds for Cousins and company to work with. When it was over, each had a passer rating well into the triple digits. And Cousins could even claim the game winner himself, a would-be touchdown pass that Josh Doctson dropped. Okay, so here's why I'm taking you through all of this. Smith and Cousins are talented, but their circumstances matter. And circumstances matter, period, for every quarterback you watch. In Smith's first 6 NFL seasons, he had 6 different coordinators, which is borderline malpractice in raising a young quarterback. Jim Harbaugh arrived in 2011, decided to keep Smith, and build an offense around the athletic gifts that made him the first pick in the 2005 draft. And what do you know? He played in the NFC title game the following January. Then he was benched and shipped to Kansas City, where Andy Reid was waiting for him. Watch the Chiefs now and see how the offense is built for and around Smith in his 5th year running it. With Cousins, it's even simpler. He got to sit and learn under Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan. Then another assistant, Sean McVay, was elevated when Jay Gruden took over in 2014. The Redskins were patient and learned more about the player as he learned the NFL game. And the result is a guy now in his 6th season in total command, never having had to go through the kind of coaching upheaval that Smith once did. Now, there is a flip side here. Andy Dalton hasn't looked like the same player since Hugh Jackson left Cincinnati. And remember, Jackson got the reins there from Gruden. Eli Manning is suddenly showing some signs of age playing behind a makeshift offensive line. And a back injury and offensive line issues have contributed to Joe Flacco's decline, but so has having 5 coordinators over the last 6 years in Baltimore. These guys aren't total prisoners to their circumstances, of course. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Aaron Rodgers may have had success no matter what. But it's hard to argue that it didn't help each to effectively play in the same system for their entire careers and with stable organizations. Of course it did. So yes, circumstances matter. And so as you watch Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Kaiser this week, remember that. And as for next year's class, here's something I'll leave you with. Over the last couple of weeks, I've heard that Sam Darnold's decision on whether or not to leave USC after this year could be affected by just which teams and coaches are sitting at the top of the draft. Based on all this, I'd tell you that's one smart kid.